Coffee in the big time.
It's Tuesday, and you know what that means, because we got two words for you. Famcast Media proudly brings to you the latest edition of Working the Marks, and I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist and top 50 Latino in the state of New Jersey, Fernando Uribe. Joining me here, my amazing panelists from all over the country, ladies and gentlemen, out and about in the woods of America. We got Macho Rodrigez. Okay, we have in the suburban urban center of Weehawken, New Jersey, Tom Mysterio, and certainly all the way down in the freedom-loving state of Florida, the only Canadian destroyer that seems to sell these days, it's the talent himself, Tyler Taylor. Folks, it's Working the Marks here on a Tuesday. Sharing is caring. Click that share button and let everybody you know how much you enjoy Working the Marks right here on YouTube, Famcast Media, of course, folks, on Facebook, Twitter, and also on Instagram. Shoot us some comments during the show. We'd love to hear from you, of course, folks. Hey, click that share button, because you know what? More people watching, the more people will learn here on Famcast Media. Guys, how are you this week here on this snowy Tuesday?
You know what? I'm doing good, man. I mean, I'm happy to be alive, having to drive through Frederick, Maryland, and all that fucking snow. But I'm good. I'm happy to be alive, excited to talk about wrestling and to piss off Tyler about the shitty company that is known as All Elite, or
baby. All right. All right. Well, we'll definitely get to that. But let me start off with one of my favorite topics, and that's Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. And they had their first show of the year this Saturday night from the Sands Casino all the way down. And, you know, if you go to that downtown section of Las Vegas, it's a little dingy and scrudgy, but it's a good part of the city nonetheless. And, folks, hard to kill.
Cheap hookers are. It's where they
don't touch anything sharp.
And certainly hard to kill. The first pay-per-view of the new refurbished TNA emanated from Las Vegas this past Saturday night. A plethora of interesting results. Certainly, folks, Jordynne Grace once again becoming the TNA Impact Women's World Champion. And of course, to no one's surprise, Moose, the multi-time champion, once again, the no TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And one of the things that really made Hard to Kill memorable this past weekend was the debut of Nick Nemeth, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler, in the WWE. We saw Nick Nemeth make an appearance in Japan during Wrestle Kingdom. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe the wrong event, but he did show up and start a little trouble with David Finlay. And certainly this past Saturday night, when the lights went out, he was the big star.
You can say Finlay. It doesn't have to be Finlay. You just say
Finlay. Finlay. Okay, sorry.
You can just say Finlay. You know.
Okay,
I'm just letting you know. That's all. You know, I don't want you. I don't want you to Finlay when you could just Finlay.
There you go. And the big surprise, Nick Nemeth, debuting on Saturday night, laying out the TNA World Champion. Maybe, I don't know, planting the seeds for a world title match and a confrontation next month for TNA. I gotta say, guys, I didn't watch. I haven't a chance to watch the show. I was out, but I did watch some highlights, and I got to tell you, for a building that houses maybe 3,000 people, it looked full. There was energy in the building. I think that the production value was very high, and I keep saying it all the time. I think, to Pat's quote, TNA has learned to not punch above their weight. They know what they can spend. They know what they can do with the space allotted, and they maximize every square inch of it. And they did that on Saturday. It was a good pay-per-view. And all things considered, again, I don't want to pick on the Canadian Destroyer right from the get-go, but I mean, this past week on Dynamite, we were subjected to the opening match on there as Claudio Castagnoli against Hangman Adam Page. Good workers, nothing against them, but no build, no anticipation, no explanation. And that was the leadoff match on a nationally syndicated channel. And look what TNA is doing. And again, maybe it's apples to oranges. We have one company that's worth billions of dollars, or their owner is, and one company that maybe can afford to pay their talent no more than $900,000 a year for a contract. That's their threshold. Folks, TNA gets a TV deal anytime soon, they could be that secondary company in North America, as far as I'm concerned, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think so, 100%. And I want to give it up for Nick Nemeth, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler, one of the smartest men in the fucking room. This dude looked at literally everything that he could do in that time that he was waiting until he was free to be able to sign, right? Until his non-compete was over. And he could have jumped straight into AEW for big money, right? But instead he decided to go with TNA, right? And he goes to New Japan and he's doing the indies and he's going to do that route, right? I think it's a smart move for him. And I think TNA, and I watched all 3 shows on Saturday, I'd like to add, which is a minor miracle in itself, but I did. And not all of AEW was bad. Not all of AEW was bad. It was not. Matchups were good. There was a couple the Hangman. I liked the Hangman and Claudio match. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good match. I think they're 2 good workers. I don't think you really need much of a fucking excuse to have 2 good workers wrestle each other on a show. So that match was solid. The problem with AEW is the new car smell's kind of gone now, and TNA just came out with like the old version of their their best-selling vehicle, like a modernized version of it or something. It's like their version of the Camaro's back, and now you have TNA in this whole other light. They've kind of stripped away the bullshit. They're back to the basics. And to me, it kind of seems like they're more about what AEW wanted to be once upon a time, which was taking mid-card guys or underutilized guys in the WWE and making them your main eventers and giving them the spot and the shine that they never would have gotten in WWE. Or maybe they did get, but they never really were given a full run. You know what I mean? I think TNA seems like they're kind of more focused on that. And even though they don't have the money that AEW has, I, for one, think that their booking, their matchmaking, their presentation, and everything else that they're doing right now is better than AEW. And I think it's a shame because the roster is fantastic and they don't have any excuses for them to be in the situation that they're in other than Tony Khan's booking.
And by the way, just as a side note, the next TNA pay-per-view, which most likely Nick Nemeth will challenge Moose, will be at No Surrender on Friday night, February the 23rd, at the Alario Center in Westwego, Louisiana, just a suburb of New Orleans. I just happened to do a quick Google search here. And the John Alario Senior Event Center in Westwego, Louisiana, has a capacity of 2,400 people. Again, you're being smart. You're having it smaller venues. You'll pack that place. Again, there'll be a turnout for will be another solid pay-per-view with No Surrender. And we'll see next month, obviously, with TNA. But I think
why
it was
does
a great
TNA pay-per-view sound like a Steven Seagal movie, Fernando? What's up with that?
Well, we have, just to give you, obviously we have No Surrender, Sacrifice. We have
Hard to Kill.
We have Hard to Kill, obviously. So, there's
Hard to Kill is a Seagal movie.
Yeah, they're being smart here. It's a Friday night, obviously. We know that, they're being smart. It's interesting because I think, if I'm not mistaken, No Surrender is at 8:00 Friday night, February 23rd. And then less than 10 hours later, we get, if you want to wake up at 6 a.m., you'll get to watch Elimination Chamber. A little bit more on that later. But it will certainly be a fun weekend for wrestling, for fans that want to watch pro wrestling for sure. But again, they're being smart. 2,400 people. They'll maximize that space. They know they'll get people. They're being smart again within their budget. I think they're not going above and beyond because they can't afford to. I think that's being fiscally responsible. But I think it's also having an awareness that smart wrestling people are running that company. Like people that say what you want about Scott D'Amore, but the guy's a good booker. He's a good producer. And he's been, I think, a good member of management for that company. So I'm sorry, guys. I know Macho and Tyler want to weigh in on what happened this past weekend.
Nah, man, get your nut out. Get it out there. We know you're the TNA guy. Go, man. Do your thing. That's good. I'm excited. Everything you said there, I wish AEW would do, but they're just like run by somebody who just really likes to sniff up the snow. Like he's probably outside right now checking to see if this is the white stuff that he normally has. But he wants to run his company into the fucking ground. So, I mean, well, what can you say? Oh, no, I'm sorry. When you address Tony Khan, you got to do it like this. It's just he just has the company and he's like, this is this is great. You know, I just can't take that guy fucking seriously anymore when I watch his company, when I watch all that stuff. And I think it's great. And I was talking to Pat about this earlier today, but it's such a it's such a black eye to me that Ziggler had the opportunity to go over to AEW and to pretty much come in and work with all these top guys that he could have worked with. He could be working with Hangman Page. He could be working with Adam Copeland again. He could have he has history with Sting. He saved them for the Survivor Series, all of that. And he said, you know what? Nah, man, this company's going in the shitter. Let me go to this company over here. Let me try to raise up this company who's going to take their talent seriously, who's going to not bingo ball book. And let's actually start to let's try to build something. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's super, you know, I think it makes a lot of sense.
I think also money-wise, he probably is like, listen, it looks like Nemeth has saved his money. He's been good with it.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't need to
say that on the show.
Yeah, he doesn't need to go to AEW and make $3 million. I mean, again, who wouldn't want to? But the point is that, like, oh, maybe he took just less money, goes to a more structured environment, which is what TNA is. And I'm sure, listen, he has all these friends, right, in AEW that he can talk to. I'm sure in private text messages and phone conversations, some might say to them, yeah, don't bother here, dude. Like, don't bother. I mean, yeah, you'll make money here, but it's not really as well structured. I mean, again, case in point, and I want Tyler to weigh in on this. You know, Samoa Joe has his promo, again, with a suit on, great. You know, Swerve comes out, and then Hangman comes out. And then of all people, we're seeing the bat signal as if Hook is supposed to be the equivalent of Batman. Like, I laughed. I was like, this Tom Holland looking motherfucker is supposed to make us believe that somehow this Wednesday he's going to be a formidable opponent to Samoa Joe. Like, I just laughed. Like, Tony Khan thinks, like, oh my God, the bat signal. It's all 165 pounds of Hook. And this is supposed to drive a rating.
How dare you disrespect Spider-Man the way you just did?
Well, I agree. I mean, listen, I'm jealous of all that hair he has. But, I mean, Tyler, your thoughts here?
He looks more like the Billy Elliot version of Tom Holland.
Tyler, I know Tyler's dying away in. Tyler, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Mark out for AEW.
Did like Tony Khan write you a bad reference? Does he owe you money? Like, what's the deal?
He owes me money for what I paid in pay-per-views. I think I should have my money back, in fairness.
Absolutely. I said that after Wembley. I want my fucking money back.
Right?
He's full of shit. He's full of shit. He never paid for a pay-per-view.
Exactly.
He's a third-party guy.
Me and Tyler fucking split Wembley.
He PayPal me,
and I remember being like, I want to get my fucking money back for this.
So as far as TNA goes, I agree with just about everything Fernando said. They got a guy in Nick Nemeth who has made a lot of money in this business, but has famously not been very happy with his role for a long time. So he knows he can come in there, be a top guy. He doesn't have to make a ton of money because he's already made a lot of money.
Bad booking, Tyler, in my opinion, of Dolph Ziggler over the years, in my opinion. Bad booking, but that's another
for sure. Yeah, of course, he's tremendously talented.
You don't even know good booking. You know what you like, you fucking come moco. Get out of here.
And as far as you mentioned Scott D'Amore a couple times, I think any wrestling company would be, better for having him. I think he's one of the smartest guys in the room, and I think that they're gonna do really well with him, leading the charge. And as long as they stay in their lane and keep doing these, 3,000 seat venue, or what was Binion's booked, the fire hall's busy or what? But anyway, as long as they stay there, I think they'll do well. If they try to do too much, then it might go back to where it was. But it seems like the people in charge are smart and they don't really want to be more than what they are.
I mean, listen, I looked at their schedule, and I know back in March of 2022, I traveled to the old ECW arena during their weekend because they were doing their tapings. And that was unfortunately the weekend, the unfortunate passing of Scott Hall that weekend in March of 2022. But I remember going to the ECW arena. And of course, we all know the layout. If you've been to the building, a historic venue for sure. They had it pretty well designed. And I think it was a good crowd. It's Philadelphia. It's a Mark City. Again, I wouldn't tell Scott D'Amore what to do. I'm not the type to tell people how to do their jobs. That's not me. But I would say that, if TNA was maybe a little ambitious, shut up, Patrick.
Find that hard to believe.
I would say that maybe they want to gamble and maybe they want to hit the Manhattan Center in New York.
Yeah, they could probably do
New York
that.
City's a marked town. They'll get some marked fans to go. Again, no one's saying a big building. No one's saying the Garden. No one's saying anything else. I don't think the Manhattan Center would be the worst thing for TNA to try again. But we'll see. But again, they're going to be in Philly later in a couple months, leading up to their. What's that?
They're here this weekend. I don't know if they're taping or if it's a house show or what. But they're 2 nights. They're running literally a rodeo arena.
Okay. Well,
so
again,
you might get 1,000 people in there.
Okay.
And they're charging $60 a pop.
Yeah, and listen, they'll get people to fill out the ECW arena for 2 nights when they do their tapings, and I'm sure it'll be good television. So we'll see. In terms of the future, obviously that'll be leading up to Sacrifice in March. All these great pay-per-view names, obviously, that TNA's had over the years. We'll see. Let's move on to Tyler's baby, All Elite Wrestling. And this past week, we saw a New Jersey native. Well, not this past week, the week before, I believe. We did see New Jersey native Deonna Purrazzo, the Virtuosa, premiere on Dynamite. And it seems like some AEW fans have been going online with their usual vitriol, and in some instances, maybe body shaming someone like Deonna Purrazzo, who has worked to get into better shape, who has worked on her craft, who's an excellent female worker, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. I just think it's funny for, if we're seeing some of this vitriol about body shaming Deonna Purrazzo, I think that just sort of lends itself to the toxicity that can be the pro wrestling fandom community. To say nothing of the fact that a lot of AEW fans are toxic to begin with. No disrespect to Tyler. Not saying I don't want to lump Tyler into that group, but I think it's a fair point to make that there's a lot of vitriol that's pervasive in Facebook groups, on Instagram, on Twitter, where AEW fans feel emboldened to, I guess, maybe body shame and engage in toxicity that for a company and for a fan base that gets shit on all the time because they're so easily triggered and they claim like these small little moral victories. It's not a good look, I think, to go after Deonna Purrazzo, who's a legitimate worker in the business, who's a respected woman in professional wrestling, who's a multi-time world champion. I think it's a bad look for a fan base that needs to do better and look better in the sense of the perception, guys.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also really shitty that we have spent the past 5 years pointing out as wrestling fans how fucking awful this company is in terms of women. Like the way that they just don't put their women out there. They give them 8 minutes at Wembley or something like that. The biggest show of the year, the biggest show ever, right? Because that's what they told people that they sold tickets to. But they get 8 minutes out there, and then they finally get a talent like Toni Storm. They give her a shot. Hey, let's go out there. Let's do all this stuff. She's ageless, does her whole gimmick. Now she's got a legitimate worker to go out there and tear the house down. Somebody who is the closest we're ever going to see a woman resembling William Regal in the ring. And the first thing that AEW fans want to do is talk about the fact that she has a little bit of a belly. Okay. I mean, I don't understand. I really don't get it. Because they'll jump on you if you say anything about fucking super small guy Adam Cole. They'll jump on you if you point out the fact that MJF wears platform shoes from the 1970s, but it's okay to point out this stuff about women. This is the AEW fan base. I saw tweets this week that said, watch any wrestling you want as long as it's not TNA and WWE. That's the AEW fan base. That's exactly who they are. I think it's sad. It's sad. They just got this woman in here. She goes out there and then boom, let's berate her as soon as she gets out there. Because the only fucking woman that they love in that company, that wrestling fans in that company love, is Britt Baker. And now she doesn't even like the fucking fans. So what does that tell you? That entire fucking fan base is worse than all of the idiots that are mad at Rey Skywalker. That's exactly what I think of that company.
Pat, your thoughts? I know you're dying to chime in here.
Well, look, man, I'm not one to really get all upset about like women's body types or say women or men should look however or whatever. Obviously, you should be fit enough to be able to do the job, right? If you want to be taken more seriously, you get in better shape, right? Deonna Purrazzo's body type is different. She's a different wrestler. Like, I don't see a problem with it whatsoever. You know, it's really, really funny because even like what we're doing now, it's emboldened people to think that because they've watched wrestling for years, that they know more than the people who are actually running it and actually doing it, you know? But the more you talk to people like that, the more you find out that they're not really rooted in fucking reality. And they have no experience in the wrestling business outside of just being a fan. So, you know, as far as people are concerned, like, you know, trashing Deonna Purrazzo, you know, screw them. She's really talented. She's been in the places that she's been in because she's talented, and she's a different look, you know? And I think you need that in wrestling. Not everybody can look the same. But to just say, like, I mean, I don't think it's just the AEW fans. I don't. I think it's wrestling fandom as a whole has gotten very tribalistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you guys remember the Monday Night Wars. You remember ECW. You remember all the gimmicks. You remember all this stuff. Some of it was real, you know, some of it, oh yeah, that was real, you know, but it was all a fucking work. It was all a work. And everybody was trying to make money. Nobody ever really shit on one company more for the other one. Everybody watched all three and we all enjoyed it. And it was a great time in wrestling. Unfortunately, we can't get to that now because everybody got really tribalistic. You know what I mean? And whether it's
but Pat,
the WWE fans, the old timers, or the Cornette crew, just one sec here, or you know, the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer marks. Like that's what it seems to be, just going at it. And it's these senseless back and forth fucking conversations that really just means people like wrestling and they like what they like, you know?
I mean, Pat, I mean, to your point, I'll let you finish though. I mean, I think also we have to, you know, acknowledge the reality that the internet to some extent, right, back in during Monday Night Wars and even ECW, like that was really the infancy of the internet. We started seeing chat rooms and AOL, websites, stuff like that. And then let's be honest, in the mid 2000s, we saw the birth of social media. We saw Facebook, we saw YouTube, we saw eventually Twitter, and then Instagram, and then Snapchat, TikTok, whatever. I mean, unfortunately, we can't put the genie back in the bottle. And now social media and smartphones have enabled everybody to have an opinion, to believe that, you know, they know better than, to your point about people that are running businesses like wrestling or that know better than other people. I get it. It's unfortunate, but, you know, I think that's why we appreciate that time period so much, because we didn't have to deal with the internet per se. We just enjoyed wrestling. We recorded it on our VHS, right? Recorders. We would jump back from room to room if we didn't have VCRs to watch Nitro and Raw. And then early Monday mornings, because I think it was 2 a.m. I'm sorry, 1 a.m. on the MSG network here on the East Coast in the New York area. That's when ECW would air. We just watched it and enjoyed it. Social media, I think, has also enabled people and has enabled the toxicity, I think, to your point. Tyler.
Yeah, man, if you're going to go online and call a woman fat for no reason other than just because you can, I really don't have time for you. And any fans from any company that's doing that, they just really need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and figure out what went wrong in their life. Like, who hurt you? Because that's ridiculous. And I personally think not only is Deonna Purrazzo a great worker, I think she's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that needs to be stated here is I loved everything Pat said about like the tribalism, but I also want to point this out. I really feel like since CM Punk's 9-month injury, right? Since he jumped off the stage and he hurt himself. All wrestling fans have talked about is the AEW fans and CM Punk when he wasn't on TV. When do we get to the point where we talk about the product that we see on screen? Is it always going to be this like with AEW where we're never going to talk about it because they just don't have good booking, they don't have good stories, where we just can't focus on the product that we see on television on Wednesday, Fridays, and Saturdays? Like, here we are once again having a conversation about something that's not actually on screen. Oh, they're talking about like Deonna Purrazzo's body shaming. That's shitty. It's once again detracting from the product that we're seeing on screen. And I know this is very like conspiracy theorist, but you know, Fernando's a conspiracy theorist, so he might appreciate this. But it almost feels like, I'm sorry, it almost feels like Tony Khan sets this stuff up so that way people don't point out, like, hey man, what the fuck are we watching on television? This is horse shit. This is terrible booking. This is terrible television. Like, this is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. And by the way, I guess there's a new member in the Lollipop Guild. The stretches all the way out to Western Pennsylvania now. What do you know? But in any event, yeah, again, there's no geographical boundaries.
The Lollipop Guild. I'm sorry. I love the Wizard of Oz. That's not That's
so
a compliment to me, pendejo.
Well,
Okay.
Not if I showed you who's in the Lollipop Guild here locally. I don't think you'd be so happy. But anyway,
dude, I think some midgets are hot. I don't know what you're talking about.
Not really. I'm not referencing midgets, but okay. But in any event, I think it's really all your points are valid, guys, because I think it sort of exacerbates the ongoing problem, and it's not going away anytime soon. I mean, when you see AEW fans doing that to Deonna, what do you think curvy workers like Ember Moon are feeling when they see that, or other women in the AEW locker room? Like, that has to be, and listen, let's be fair too, you know, which helps us segue to the next topic here. You know, where should Mercedes Moné go? You know, you start seeing, you know, a climate like that in AEW, not necessarily the locker room, but a fan environment. Is that somewhere you want to go? Where Mercedes Moné is still a free agent, still not signed with anybody, despite what Uncle Dave reported, and other outlets like Sean Ross, the SAP did, and others. It seems like Mercedes is still a free agent. Maybe AEW is not a good fit for her, not just because of something like this, but you know, again, the Rumble is a week from this Saturday. We haven't heard anything yet. She'd be a great, you know, in our fantasy booking episode, folks. Again, if you haven't checked it out, you know, check it out on our Working the Marks YouTube page and all of our great platforms. You know, I think she'd be a great addition to the Women's Rumble match. I think she'd be a great addition to maybe helping her friend Bailey against Damage Control. Who knows? I think that Mercedes has options, but maybe this, again, I don't want to sort of be hyperbolic here because that's not my way, but Mercedes might look at AEW and look at that climate and look at the fandom there and say, maybe that's not the best environment for me to go. Again, there's money there to be made and it could be a lucrative contract, but should I take less, have more peace, and have more competent booking and more competent presentation in what WWE presents? I think it's an interesting time for her. And the fact that she's still not signed that we know of, I think adds to a lot of the intrigue around her right now, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I like about AEW, but it's not a place that I would want to work. They obviously have issues with the booking. They obviously have issues presenting women. Then now add this to it. I just don't see why she would sign there. I realize she's had issues in WWE in the past. So that may be.
Yeah, but those issues are gone. But those issues are gone. Vince is gone, supposedly. If that was the issue, Vince is gone.
If that was the issue,
Vince is gone creatively. So, what's the issue for her now? I think.
Yeah, but if you get burned somewhere, you might not necessarily be just eager to go back, whether they have new management or not. I think that's probably where she ends up. I think that's where she's going to get. She may not get the most money, but she'll get enough to that's where she'll be comfortable signing. I think she would be a huge addition if someone like if she was willing to take whatever place like TNA could offer, because she would bring eyeballs to the product, and that could make all of their other stars just that much bigger. I don't think she goes there because I don't think they can pay her what she wants, but I would think that would be amazing. But I think most likely what you see is there's a pretty good chance you see her in the Rumble. I don't know that coming back to be in Bayley's corner or whatever is really the best way to bring back a star like that. But she could still have a significant match at Mania if she's, comes back at the Rumble and builds a story, and maybe she wrestles one of the other members of Damage Control.
Mach?
I mean, I see her and Naomi going back to WWE. Think about it. Dakota Kai can't work. Io's going to defend her title against Bayley. You have Team Bad. Sasha and Naomi work the other members of Damage Control. It all makes sense to me. I can't even fathom her going to AEW because in 5 years, what could you possibly see that makes you want to go to that company? Let's put ourselves in her shoes for a second, right? What is she possibly seeing that's like, yeah, I can capitalize off that. I can help that product improve.
Money. That's it. Money.
That's it.
Yeah. And also too, I think that there's a reality of, you look at Mercedes and where she fits into all this. And by the same token, it's also like, to Macha's point, like, look at it creatively. Like, who is she going to work with there that she can have good matches with? Maybe a handful of women. I mean, yes, Deonna Purrazzo's there now, but it seems like they're angling towards a program with Deonna Purrazzo and Toni Storm, which I think will be a great match when it happens, whether it's at Revolution in March or a Dynamite coming up. Who knows? But I think Mercedes, there has to be, I think, some awareness.
She could work female Bret Hart.
Yeah,
I mean, she's coming back. Serena Deeb's coming back. So
yeah, and also too, Trinity losing the TNA Women's title this past weekend to Jordan Grace. I don't know her contract situation. I don't know when it lapses, but maybe that's a way to write her off television, and maybe it was a short-term gig for Trinity. I don't think she even made a full calendar year.
I believe she's another one that's up sometime in 2024.
Okay, again, I don't know how long it was, but if she's again, she lost the title this past Saturday to Jordan Grace, the Juggernaut. I don't know how much more time she has left, but yeah, to Macha's point, if her and Mercedes were to go back to WWE, I think it'd be a great addition to the women's division, and obviously to add intrigue to the feud with Damage Control. Absolutely, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say wherever she ends up, she's going to be something for them, whoever it might be. But I just think she's going back to WWE. I just think the opportunity to be a babyface alongside her friend, have her friends back, for the turn and the big dramatic moment and the big hug. I think it's a good way for them to get the emotions invested into those matchups. Naomi, I don't know, man. I don't know about Trinity, man. Like, I don't know if she's gonna be a part of that, because you got to think Bianca is going to be involved some way, right? Unless they put Bianca against like Tiffany Stratton or something like that. That'd be kind of cool. That'd be cool for me. But I don't know if they're angling for that yet. But I just think that for Mercedes, it makes perfect sense. She can do her brand shit outside of it. Her and Triple H probably had a better relationship than her and Vince did at the end, right? Or so it seems. And just her working with Bayley, and I think just her being around AEW, seeing what it was like. I mean, bro, she was there the fucking day of All In. She heard about Punk and all this shit. She probably might have even saw something. Who knows? Even though I think she was up in that box then. But point is that she got to see firsthand what that company was like. So she goes there. She's definitely going there for money. And to some extent, she's betting on herself. She's she's believing fully that she's going to be the difference maker for them, a la CM Punk. And to some extent, you got to hand it to her if that's what she's going to do. You know, you got to give her props. I mean, whether she succeeds or not, whatever, but like you got to give her fucking props. But I think she's going back to WWE.
Yeah, listen, the next few months are going to be interesting, guys. Obviously, the Rumble from this Saturday. If she's one of the surprise entrants, I think that crowd will pop in Tampa at Tropicana Field, and I think certainly on the road to WrestleMania, we'll see where she fits into all the storylines and the presentation and the booking. Speaking of presentation, for anybody out there that watches Reality of Wrestling TV, this past weekend, interesting to see Jacob Fatu on there and Booker T appear in the ring in some sort of managerial capacity for Jacob Fatu. It would only lend us to believe, guys, that, you know, perhaps Jacob Fatu is talking with WWE, obviously they're with Booker. Maybe Booker being a middleman to Nick Khan and Paul Levesque. Listen, I think the bloodline needs a new member, another one of Rikishi's sons. And this is a guy, when you look at Jacob Fatu, I mean, he looks menacing. Not to say that not to say that the other boys don't, but I mean, you look at Jacob Fatu, he looks like a monster. And at a time where, you know, going into the Rumble, going into Elimination Chamber, eventually WrestleMania in the shithole of North America in Philadelphia, you know, Jacob Fatu perhaps debuting at some point and helping the Tribal Chief hold on to his record-setting pace as the WWE Undisputed Universal Champion as we head into the fall in September when the leaves change colors and the Tribal Chief is soon to break Hulk Hogan's record. I would not be shocked whatsoever to see Jacob Fatu in a WWE ring anytime soon, maybe NXT or maybe on the main roster right away. Again, he's been an established worker. He's got a great look to him, menacing. You know, Macho and Patrick are the workers. I don't know where to rank him in the sense of how he compares to his brothers, you know, the Usos, and obviously along with Solo Sikoa. But he's Samoan. He's got great training. We'll find out. But seeing Booker T with Jacob Fatu this past weekend, I think started getting a lot of people to speculate about what the road to WrestleMania will be and if we'll see a new member of the Bloodline. Did you guys catch that this weekend with Reality of Wrestling TV?
I did not. Oh, thank you for that. Look at that, Fernando. Pat, look at this. Like it and shared. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
it, Jake.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Out there. Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I did not see that, but in terms of Booker T being attached to anybody, you kind of have to think that you kind of got to think of WWE. He's done really good work with people like Ember Moon and Trick Williams. So if he has his name attached to him, obviously that could be good just for him. But Booker does a lot of stuff outside of WWE himself. So
Sure.
It doesn't need to be as black and white as him just going over there. I mean, in terms of you asking, I'll err on the side of Pat there because I'm not the biggest Solo fan, and I do think the Usos are the greatest tag team that we've ever seen alive. So I don't know, Pat. What do you think?
I think he's Samoan. I think he can go. And I think that's all people need to know. And how they choose to present him is how they choose to present him. But no matter what role they put him in, he's going to succeed because he knows how to work. He knows how to go. So Jake Fatu would be, you know, pretty interesting addition. It's funny you mentioned WrestleMania, right? Because I've really been thinking a lot about WrestleMania. I've been thinking about that fatal four-way coming up at the Royal Rumble, right? You know, and I've been thinking to myself, based on that match and the booking of that match, I feel like Cody's not going to finish the story anymore. I feel like Cody's not even going to wrestle Roman at WrestleMania. I feel like it's going to be The Rock and Roman at Mania. I don't think
as it should be.
I don't think Perth is happening for Roman. If he does show up, it'll be to probably confront Rock if Rock wins the Elimination Chamber. But I mean, you got to think that like they're booking that match because you want to have him involved with all those guys so that you can continue to have him feud with people even after Mania is done, after you do the 4-way, all that. I mean, that's just classic booking, right? You know, we've seen that before. We've recognized that pattern before. You don't have to know booking to recognize that, folks.
Mhm.
But I just think that the booking of that match is really leading me to believe that like Cody's not going to make it happen this year. And I think they're going to hold off till 41. And I think that he's going to finish the story then. He's definitely going to be the guy to beat Roman. So no question about it, but his story to me is more about overcoming adversity. So I know a couple weeks back I had said a different thing, but I really had a chance to think about it, man. And I really feel and here's the other thing. Here's the other thing real quick. You know, CM Punk coming back, main eventing WrestleMania with Seth Rollins. That's a big fucking deal. That's a big fucking deal. That's like you had that on your list of things that you didn't think was gonna fucking happen. And now it's happening, right?
Mhm.
So you have that and you have Cody versus Roman that night. I mean the night after. To me, the bigger match, the more emotional match is CM Punk and Seth. It's not really Cody and Roman. I'm sorry. It doesn't have the emotional connection. It doesn't have the dream match kind of feel to it. So I mean, are you gonna book this other match that feels a little less important than your first night main event? Or are you gonna take advantage of the fact that you have this opportunity to book this mega dream match and make that night
Mhm.
too? You know what I mean? You don't want to underwhelm at any point with either one of your main events. So, but again, I'm just speculating here.
Yeah, no, listen, and I think you raised a fair point about, you know, Cody not finishing the story. I agree with you, Pat, and we've talked off the air about it. And while, you know, a location for WrestleMania 41 has not been finalized, I know that they've been talking about maybe Atlanta, the beautiful facility there, the Mercedes Dome in Atlanta. Cody's from Atlanta. Would it really surprise us that Cody loses again? And very much like his father, we've talked about this before, not to beat a dead horse, and not that anyone's advocating for beating an animal like that. But what I'm saying is that, you know, the idea that his father lost to Ric Flair twice and finally got the payoff on the third try, and of all places, maybe Atlanta in April of 2025 would not be the worst scenario in the sense of booking, you know, as we see it presently. So I'm with you. To your point, I guess the more emotional, I think, invested match we would see would be Rollins and Punk night one, perhaps Rock and Roman night two. I mean, you want to talk about the media frenzy, you want to talk about the metrics, the social media engagement. I mean, I don't want to sound predictable where Roman retains a week from this Saturday, and then you hear "if you smell," and then, you know, The Rock comes out and confronts him. I mean, that's a little, not to say it's predictable, but I think we would all lose our minds if we saw that. I think that building would explode, obviously. And obviously, you know, that building's going to be the fullest it's ever been, because we all know a Tampa Bay Ray home game doesn't even get capacity attendance. So we know that building will be full for the first time in God knows how long, right? But to your point, Pat, again, it's those two nights. Let's have the big mega money matches, and Roman Rock night two. Again, you know, it's Cody doesn't finish the story. Are we going to be so horrified if we have to wait another year again? His father, you know, again, we're fans any less disenchanted about Dusty taking 3 tries to finally beat Ric Flair? Do we look back on that feud and say, "Oh my God, what a waste"? Like, no one says that about that.
So you keep coming back to that, but you got to remember one thing is that we didn't have the internet back then, where people would be constantly bitching and overanalyzing. And a year from now, are they even going to want to see that?
But
yes.
Tyler, last April. But Tyler, think about last April. That night on the internet, Twitter, social media, people were losing their minds. Oh, I'm canceling Peacock. Oh, I'm done. I can't believe Paul booked this. And what happened? People, they sold out London for Money in the Bank.
They lose faith.
But the metrics don't tell you that, because London sold out for Money in the Bank. Ford Field sold out for SummerSlam. We had other buildings sell out. I mean, not to sound like Paul Levesque, like this is the highest grossing fill in the blank BLE. But like, it's not like, okay, fans bitch and moan that night, they got over it. It's sort of like when you have an argument with your girlfriend. Yeah, she pisses you off. All right, if you can get, if you can have sex that night and forget about it, cool. The next morning you're over it. That's what happened this past April with fans. Go back and just Google the fan reaction.
No,
I
was one of them.
Okay, and guess what? We're here today
Yep.
on a snowy January Tuesday night talking about Mania, and we're still invested. That's all I'm saying.
Right. I just think at some point when you keep like, yeah, they're gonna make more money in the short term with Rock and Roman and all that. But at some point, what does that say to the people who go to the pay-per-view or PLE or whatever the next month, and none of those guys are there? Rock's not there, Roman's not there, Punk probably won't be there. Like, does that? I mean, obviously Mania is the big show, but like, what is that? How does that? At some point, aren't you being counterproductive? Aren't you risking future money to just make more now?
What are they risking?
Yeah.
What do they risk? At some point, if you're not elevating people, if you're not making people, at some point, doesn't that run the risk of business taking a downturn like it has previously?
Cody Rhodes lost in the main event of WrestleMania Night 2. They sold out Puerto Rico and Backlash the next month.
Yeah, because they hadn't been there in how many years?
So, and then Uribe just mentioned a couple more pay-per-views that sold out right after.
And they put a friggin' rapper in the main event.
Okay, I moved on from that. I said, and then Uribe just mentioned 2 other pay-per-views that sold out as well.
And
Roman
was on Money in the Bank.
Okay.
And what was the other one, Uribe?
Night of Champions. I know. Was it Night of Champions? Where him and Solo challenged the Usos. I'm sorry, no. They challenged Kevin and Sammy for the tag titles, and that's when the Usos, whatever. Okay, it's Saudi Arabia.
Those are shows that Roman is on. So we go to Cleveland for Fastlane or whatever, just for example. Mm-hmm. And there's no Roman, there's no Punk.
The building sold out.
Rock.
The building sold out. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
I'm talking about if we keep repeating this though, is that still going to happen, or is that going to say no?
Yeah,
this is
absolutely, because WWE's smarter than the 4 of us here, and they're not going to have Punk and Roman. Yeah, they're not going to have Punk and Roman both miss. That's the whole point of having 2 part-time superstars that are working on opposite brands. They can work opposite shows.
And Tyler, also too, I mean, let's also be realistic about the fact that they're making stars. They've been making stars. Rhea Ripley is as popular as any man in WWE. When they go to Australia and that show is sold out, I think
main events,
and possibly she's in the chamber match defending. Or maybe she's in a one-on-one. Who knows? But it's going to be Australia. It's a market that produces a lot of good talent, work rate-wise, right? It's going to be a novelty of a PLE that hasn't really gone overseas, if at all, ever. I mean, again, it's like, do you think Backlash, when it goes to Paris, in May after WrestleMania, it'll be full?
They've cracked the code right now with having all these international shows.
So you think Cody losing is going to stop that?
A regular thing, and you're like, okay, well, they're here every year, and they're going to have to think of something else. I just think, like, at some point, if you try to build these stars all year, and then you get to the main event of WrestleMania, and they're not good enough to be there, and don't tell me having the Rock in the main event, and don't tell me having the Rock in the main event is going to sell more tickets, because you can't sell more than all of them, and it'll be sold out anyway.
But Tyler, remember also, it's not just, yes, the tickets matter, certainly, and they'll be sold. I mean, Mania sold out to begin with. We already know that. Go on TickPick, Vivid Seats, Ticketmaster, they're sold out. I mean, I'm monitoring night 1 because I want to go with a bunch of my buddies. So, like, I'm monitoring those prices. Having said that, I think also WWE as a business also heavily relies on social media metrics and engagement. And yes, Cody and Roman got enormous metrics and engagement last year. But I think for a company like WWE, again, now that they're part of TKO, now that they're part with Endeavor, they look at it the same way they look at UFC. It's about the metrics. It's about visibility. And not to say that Cody and Roman won't attract an audience, but think about it for a moment where never mind the USFL and the XFL are merging and Rocky's a part of that. And he's to be promoting it before Mania. The idea that Dwayne Johnson, the movie star, is going to be in the second main event of WrestleMania, wrestling his cousin. And again, may not be the longest of matches. The media engagement, the social media metrics, the merch, everything that if you're running a business, that checks off every single box. It's going to be box office. Not to say Cody and Roman isn't. It is. But think about, okay, you're dating a girl who's a 9, but there's a possibility of dating a girl who's a 10.
That pendejo, bro. Why do you keep bringing up women this way?
No, what I'm saying, no, but what I'm saying to you is that, yeah, you're dating a 9. Here comes a chance to date a 10. You pass up dating the 10? No, you don't do that. You're trying to be smart for yourself. It's no different in business.
What if you're in love with the 9? What if the 10 doesn't do it for you? Oh,
I'm just
come on.
I'm trying to come up with an analogy here that's plausible in the real world.
So
that's all.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is, okay, so there's going to come a time, probably right after this, where Rock's not available anymore. But you've just said that by putting him in the main event, what you've said is that all these other guys that could have been there are less than. So now you have to rely on them. And does that not hurt your visibility in your social media and all that going forward?
But that didn't happen. Cody lost last April in Inglewood, California, and his merch sales are still the top. People are still tuning in.
He lost, but he was in the main event. But if he's not even in the main event, if he's wrestling
Randy Orton,
I don't know who the hell he's going to wrestle if he's not. Yeah, that'd be good.
He's a moneymaker, man. He's in the John Cena spot. He just hasn't won the title yet.
Okay.
And
so you
and
think
his story, he's the face. He's the face of the company. Like Roman is the guy. Punk will be the guy or one of the guys.
Roman is King Koopa. He's like the main boss. Yeah, I get it.
Right, but Cody Rhodes is fucking Mario. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. So you don't think this hurts him?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Because Cody's story is about overcoming the odds. Cody's story is about like, hey, it didn't work out for me in WWE. So when he started his own company, he became what he wanted to become, and then he came back that way. And it's like, oh shit. And he's overcome so much. He's won so many big matches. The way he's been booked. The fact that he's a white meat babyface and he's not fucking stale. That's incredible.
Okay, I appreciate you saying that because that makes more sense than it's about engagement and money. Because what I'm saying is okay, but what happens next? So what you're saying makes more sense. I appreciate that.
But he already said that. You just ignored it. He said he finishes the story at 41. Pat said that
I'm trying to bring up. Well, but is it going to hurt him? And he's explaining why it isn't.
No. Yeah. Listen, it certainly won't. And again, guys, like I said, and I have this, argument all the time with my classmates from grad school that we're big wrestling fans and we chat all the time. I mean, we're still watching. We're still watching, and we're still engaged almost a year later after all of them. And again, I could screenshot it and show you guys, like when they were all like, I'm canceling Peacock. I'm done. This is bullshit. This is bullshit booking. I'm not going to watch anymore. I'm like, okay, cool. Do me a favor. Since you have the premium one, could you give me the password and I'll gladly take it off your hands?
Oh my God.
Wait, did Daniel Bryan not win the main event or not win the Royal Rumble again?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Did Daniel Bryan not win the Royal Rumble again? People are canceling Peacock?
Tyler hates Daniel Bryan too.
Yeah.
No, I hate his fans crying and whining because he didn't win the Royal Rumble.
I mean, yeah, that didn't take away from his moment 10 years ago in New Orleans.
Canceling my subscription.
That was great that he lost the Royal Rumble. That was actually one of the best parts of the story. That completely added to where they got to.
Exactly.
And again, fans will bitch and moan. Fans will bitch and moan, and they're still watching. Again, I said, guys, if you don't want Peacock, I mean, I'll gladly take it off your hands. Since Pat won't give me his password, for God's sakes. You know what I'm saying? So
$6.
What's that?
It's $6.
I got a lot of expenses, my man. Again, I got a lot of expenses.
You're one of the top 50 Latinos in New Jersey. By the way, I can't help it. I have to ask you, who went around ranking Latinos?
A bunch of Latinos. You know,
there's just like a list, or
yeah, there's a list. Yeah, there's a list. Yeah, the United
What
States.
number is Pat?
I don't know. Pat wasn't nominated.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, he might get nominated this year. I don't know.
Seven. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, I don't know, Tyler. I mean, again, this year the United States Latino Affairs Initiative will come out with their list. We'll see if I'm on it again. Hopefully, we'll see.
So is it like influential wise, or is it just you're just one of the top 50, one of the best?
I would argue that it's top 50 Latinos that are influential in different arenas: education, business, finance, media. I mean, contrary to what the ham and eggers over here, my media brand.
I'm fucking laughing.
Because it's like the way you said it sounds like they're just walking around ranking people. Like, oh, hey, Jose, you're
like, mira, papá, tú eres latino.
Fernando,
número 10.
17.
But by the way, Pat, I just noticed it. Great windbreaker. Awesome. Guys, moving on here.
That's a track jacket.
Oh, it is? Okay, nice.
Come on, man. You don't. I thought you said that's his proud NAACP member. What the fuck? You don't know who Run DMC is?
Is Pat going to start busting out, It's Tricky by Run DMC and doing the card game with Penn and Teller? I don't know. It looks like he is, maybe with that windbreaker. I don't know. But
Rock the Bells by LL
maybe,
Cool
yeah. But guys, it's that time of the show here, main event time. And I have to tell you, I mean, thankfully I added a little liquor to my mug here because I had to be a little feeling nice to have this conversation rationally without losing my mind. And
I'm not going to be nice.
And Uncle David Meltzer, the publisher of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, who, again, I'll give him his due. He's been covering pro wrestling longer than I've been alive, and I'm the elder statesman in this conversation. Shut up, Patrick. So, Dave Meltzer went on record last week. Again, I don't have the quote in front of me, but I'm just sort of paraphrasing here, where Dave Meltzer went on to say that the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, are the best tag team in terms of making people look good in the ring in the last 20 years. I have to say, as an intellectual, an academic, and as a journalist, I am outraged that somebody would say that with a straight face and who's also a pro wrestling fan. Now, again, being an MCU fan, I understand that we've now been exposed for the last few years with their movies about the quantum realm and timelines and different versions of Earth. I don't know what version of Earth Dave Meltzer's living in where the reality stone plays a factor, or the time stone, or the mind stone, where if we do a simple Google search of tag teams in the last 20 years, and I'll defer to Pat on this, because Pat, I know, is dying to chime in on this. In the last 20 years, we don't have enough fingers and toes, guys. Let's be fair. If we use all our fingers and toes, I'm pretty sure we'll come pretty close to naming that amount of tag teams that are better than Matt and Nick Jackson. Now, again, I think Dave kind of tried to save himself a little bit by saying it the way he did. Again, are the best tag team in terms of making people look good in the ring. I think it's highly insulting to wrestling fans, to workers like Macho and Patrick, who have worked in the business, who've taken bumps, who understand ring psychology and how to work a match and book. I look at this comment by Meltzer, Tyler, as highly insulting, because what are we basing this on? The biweekly direct deposit to his bank account? What are we basing this on? Some metric that he wouldn't have. Because if you look at ratings, arenas, and stadiums, if Matt and Nick Jackson want to hang their hat on, they worked the Tokyo Dome, sure. But in any arena in this country that they haven't sold out, okay, I mean, who would think that Matt and Nick Jackson are better? And I'm going to name 5 teams off the top of my head in no particular order, okay? Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle, Edge and Christian, the Usos, okay? I mean, we look at the New Day. We look at, tag teams like Cesaro and Sheamus. Those are just 5 tag teams off the top of my head. All very different teams that are better than the Young Bucks. And that's just 15 seconds it took me to recite 5 teams. You give me 10 minutes, I'm going to recite probably 30 tag teams that are better than the Young Bucks.
Bro, there are 2 people in their fucking company. There's 2. Ray Dragon, better. The Briscoes, better.
It's brutal.
This doesn't work there anymore.
Now, let me defer to Pat. I know Pat has the list there readily available. Pat can read you what the list is, like in no particular order, of tag teams in the last 20 years. Meltzer's out of his mind. I think he's out of his mind, and I'm being kind here because I could just call him delusional, but I don't want to insult him. I want to sort of lay fact-based argument here. It's not feasible. His argument's not feasible. It's lacking in fact. Pat, you have the floor, brother.
So I get where Dave's coming from, right? You know, they're his friends. He likes the guys. And in fairness, they're pretty good at what they do. They are. The thing that bugs me really is just this whole thing about making people look good. Oh, I made you look good. I made you look good. Yes, it's a part of wrestling. Yes, it's a part of what you do. But telling a story is more important than making somebody look good. Somebody selling, that's important. You know what I'm saying? Having good psychology when piecing a match together, that's important. The Young Bucks have the ability to have good matches, but when left to their devices, which they have been for many, many, many times throughout their careers, I think that the Young Bucks can be a little overbearing, and I think that they sometimes make wrestling look bad. They make it look phony. They make it look hokey. And we all know it's a fucking work, right? We all still watch it. We know it's a fucking work. We understand when you're watching a wrestling show or going to a wrestling show, you know the deal. You're signing the contract by fucking being there, right? You know what the deal is. But some people are better at making it look real and make it look like a struggle instead of a fucking exhibition or a gymnastics exhibition. And the people that are able to make it look good and tell a good story are the best ones, and the ones that really stick around and make marks and become influential, you know? The Young Bucks are very good for modern day wrestlers, but I wouldn't say that they were the best at making people look good in the last 20 years or so. I wouldn't say that.
Tyler?
Yeah. So I actually heard something that Adam Copeland said today, and it was he was talking about the greatest wrestling match of all time or whatever, and he was like, it's not possible because you can't say what the best is because it's subjective. With that being, he's like, sounds maybe your favorite movie is Raging Bull, and maybe I like Point Break. With that being said, no,
2 great movies.
They're not the best. The aforementioned Adam Copeland, I can name 3 tag teams that he was in that are better than the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
R-Rated RKO, his team with Mysterio and Edge and Christian. Just him alone. That being said, I'm kind of a fan of them. I find them entertaining to watch. I think they are capable of doing all the things that you should do. I think we've seen them have matches with a team like Ray Dragon, and they did sell, and there was psychology, and it was really good. And then they have some matches where it's just a super kick party, and that's fun sometimes too. But that doesn't make them the best. It's just they're entertaining. And it all just depends on what you like. And sometimes it's just like Pat said, it's a little overbearing and it's a little annoying. And I think that comes from the feeling if you've read or listened to their book, they feel like they were overlooked for a long time. And now that they have the spot that they have, I think they're just trying to shove it in everybody's face. And sometimes that's great and sometimes it's really annoying.
I think what's annoying though, guys,
sums up the Young Bucks in a couple sentences.
I think what's more annoying, I think, is that as fans, we already have our opinion about Dave Meltzer. Again, I'm not taking anything away from him as a historian, as a journalist who's been working for decades. I'm talking about multiple decades in the business, and a guy whose publication, for better or for worse, people still subscribe to. I know the print edition was dissolved late last year. If you want to subscribe to that and pay whatever it is, I think it's like $12.95 a year, a month, to subscribe to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, to their exclusive podcast, to all the content with Brian Alvarez. I mean, if you have disposable income like that and you want to spend it, that's your business. I'm no one to tell anyone how to spend their disposable income on whatever. Having said that, the problem with Meltzer, and I think it's where people who are established in the business like Bischoff, Ric Flair, Conrad Thompson, notable reputable podcasters, Disco Inferno and Conan to some extent, right, who are also respected in the business. I think they look at Meltzer and say, like, you've lost credibility. You've become so partisan. I understand one thing is to, have friends and be a mark for your friends. I get all that. I interviewed a journalist last night who's a dear friend of mine, John Hines, who's one of the most respected journalists, not just in Hudson County in New Jersey, but statewide. But I also understand that, like, I have to look at him objectively. Yeah, he's a buddy of mine. He's part of the Pinnacle, but I have to look at him objectively. I think Meltzer has lost that.
Time out. He's a part of the what?
The what?
He's a part of the what?
He's the part of the
Pinnacle? The MJF group?
Did you
That's
name
our
your group after a shitty failed AEW stable?
That's our group, the Pinnacle, the Doctor, the Dean, the walking weapon. That's us, So anyway, what? First of all, John Hines would kill all four of us. I knows what I'm talking about. Okay, he'd kill all four of us. Okay.
Oh my god.
Is he your Wardlow?
Why not Kai Tai? You guys could have been Kai and Tai. That would have been
no. The Dean's my ward. But the point is that there comes a
Cuba Libre or something.
There comes a point when people look at Meltzer and, like, you've allowed partisanship to now cloud your ability to have a factually based argument. And I think that's why Meltzer brings it on himself. Yeah, listen, did that get clicks and views? Sure. Did that get people riled up? Sure. We're having a segment on this show about it. So he's smart. He knows what he's doing. But I think also, too, it makes him look overly partisan when there's no metric you can cite where the Young Bucks are as good of a worker team as he thinks they are. I think that's the thing that's really tragic here about Meltzer. Mach, I'm sorry. I know you want to chime in.
No, I mean, Pat summed it up perfectly. I don't really have much to add to that. I feel like all I would do is rip this, like, Rockers light apart. It's the look good thing for me, because they've produced more shitty matches in the past, like, 3 years than any tag team that you can name in WWE, than any tag team that you can name right now. The current AEW World Tag Team Champions have had more, like, interesting championship matches than the Bucks had in the past 3 years.
Not this weekend.
Right now. No, obviously not, because Chris Jericho was involved. But obviously, when you watch the company for the past 3 years, you don't even think of the Young Bucks as wrestlers anymore. They barely work anymore, and now they're so mirrored with controversy that that's all you think of. Right now, there's nobody sharing. Let me put it to you this way. If you go on Twitter right now and you type in Kenny Omega, do you know how many times that Arthur Ashe video of the introduction of him and Bryan Danielson comes up on your page? Like, everybody, ooh, this is like one of the best moments. Do you know how many times the final buckshot from Adam Page when he wins the world title comes up on there, or Kenny Omega's photo of him being the belt collector comes up? Those are the things that come up when you look up Kenny Omega. When you look up the Young Bucks, you know what comes up about them? Running around the ring after CM Punk was fired. That's what comes up about the Young Bucks. They're not even looked at as professional wrestlers anymore. They're looked at as fucking children who are lucky enough to be EVPs in a company where they are the only thing left in, like, I don't know, man. I just can't see them as like a valuable part of professional wrestling. I get it, and I understand that their whole super kick thing is all about like, let's work everybody. People hate this, so we're gonna do it. I get that. I grew up a fan of Eric Bischoff and Hogan, like of that whole area, like of NWO and stuff like that. But I think when people think about you outside of wrestling instead of actually in the ring bell to bell, you can't say that they make people look good when you're not even thinking about their in-ring work. If I ask Tyler right now to name his last favorite Young Bucks match, he's going to name the same fucking match he's been talking about for 5 years. That's pretty bad when you can only talk about one match in the past 5 years, and you gave this guy, and this guy said 20 years. That's what he said. The past 20 years. Nobody's made any other tag team look better in the past 20 years. That's what he said. And then he named these two like jabroni guys. For like, I don't even know what they were, Dante Martin and whoever the other guy was. That they made them look better. And I'm thinking like, what are you talking? How? Where are they?
Well,
where are these two wrestlers?
Dante did put his leg on backwards right after that.
Okay, but they're back now,
so
right?
That kind of derailed them. Yeah, and they just got a win over Orange Cassidy on Rampage the other week. So they're definitely on the come up, and that was a really good match.
Yeah, but okay, so there you go. If he would have said some comment like that about Orange Cassidy, there'd be less of an argument. They'd be like, okay, yeah he might. Nobody probably looks better. He's great. He would have said that shit about Hangman Page or Swerve Strickland or Samoa Joe. He could have said that about anybody. He didn't have to go to Bryan Danielson. He didn't have to go to CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. He didn't have to go to the top guys in the world. He didn't have to say Okada or Will Ospreay. He could have said other guys. He picked his best friends.
Yeah, I think at this point, Meltzer should have the same rule about the Young Bucks as I have about Finn Balor. He's just not allowed to talk about them because he can't be objective.
Yeah.
Well, this is the problem too, though, that what we saw last week on Dynamite, and from what I'm reading, I know Patrick and I talked about it off the air. I think Macho put it on the chat when they're not bullying D, during the day. But I did see something that apparently Sting is looking to work with the Young Bucks for his last match in Greensboro. And if you looked at the response online, it wasn't a very favorable one. And I get it that Matt and Nick came out with their, potential, sex offender mustaches and dressed like they shouldn't be within 500 feet of a school. I get all that. That's probably not the best like that, but that's fine. And you could tell that building looked deflated when the Super Kick Party theme, aired over the speakers, and Sting and Darby Allin are there. The classical stare down. I mean, guys, I actually rewinded it 3 times to make sure I wasn't imagining it. That building felt and sounded deflated. And if that's who Sting wants to wrestle, listen, Sting has earned the right to go out however he wants. Steve Bourne is one of the best professional wrestlers we've seen in the last 30 years for his character work, everything else. Okay? But if that's who Sting
Thank you, Papo. That's a really nice thing for you to say.
I love Sting too. No, I love Sting. But if that's who Sting wants to wrestle, if Sting feels that, hey, he has to give these guys a rub, I'll sort of, quote Jim Cornette. It's, you want to go out putting over 2 skinny, fat, young, old guys. And I know it sounds like a little weird to sort of verbalize it that way, but that's what the Young Bucks look like now. They're not young.
I just want to say what I said on our podcast, on the Me and Tyler's podcast. I really think it's about paying respect to the company. Like, Sting got to come back and do this his own way. He got to come back and he gets to go out the way he wants to go out.
Sure.
Cody's not there anymore. Kenny Omega's hurt. I think this is the only way for him to say thank you on his way out is by putting over the Young Bucks. So I wouldn't be surprised that this is exactly what it's about. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that it's like, oh, let's put over Matt and Nick. I think it's about a thank you. Thank you for letting me go out my way. And that's it. Because do I believe this thing can work a 10-minute match with someone? Absolutely. Sure. I think I talked to you. I think he could do a 10-minute match with entrances. He could do that, but I don't think he wants to. And if I could just say one more negative thing, like I know I was just very positive about Sting and the Young Bucks. I don't think Sting trusts that Darby Allin can go with him for 10 minutes. Like, that's not a match I think he really feels like he can have. That guy fucking sucks. And he spent 5 years trying to get this kid over. And it's like, dude, in 5 years, you didn't learn anything. You didn't even learn how to protect yourself. You keep putting yourself in danger. He's more unsafe than Sammy Guevara is. I don't understand. I feel bad. I feel bad because this kid's going to wind up like he's just going to wind up hurting himself without Sting there to actually watch his back and tell him not to do shit.
Yeah, I mean, that match on Wednesday, I mean, the bump that Sting took off the stage with Brian Cage looked bad. Like, for a moment, I was like, holy shit. Like, I thought Sting was, for a second, I thought Sting looked concussed in the ring. Maybe he was selling it, who knows. Darby Allin took a few bumps that night. I mean, that German suplex by Takeshita on the outside, I get it, it's gym mats on the floor, but folks,
a great
a German suplex outside, like that looked like painful. And then the other one in the ring, I know that Pat mentioned it wasn't as bad as it looked with sort of like the spin in the air and landing by the ropes and all that. But again, I think Macho's onto something. I think if you want to pay tribute and thank you to Tony Khan and AEW as a company for letting him come back, where WWE was not going to clear him after the incident with Seth Rollins in 2015. He still felt he had something to give to the business. Again, not the way. I mean, if Omega was available, even then, you think like Omega and Sting, that match might not go very long either. So, yeah, I think Macho has a very valid point that, hey, this is what's left of the hierarchy of AEW. He's not going to fight Tony Khan. It's not like we're going to have a Vince McMahon, Undertaker, Vince McMahon, Shawn Michaels match, a street fight. No, like Sting is going to go out. I don't know if that'll be the main event at Revolution. You would think it maybe
100% it's going to be the main event. Sting is main eventing his last pay-per-view.
Okay, so there you go. So that match will be 10 minutes. I'm assuming it'll have to be gimmicky, a street fight, something. A straight-up wrestling match, I don't know if that's what.
I drive fucking 6 hours to go see this thing, and he doesn't main event. I'm going to throw a hissy fit.
He'll do it, too.
Go protest at the box office,
Yeah, I'll be fucking protesting. I'll be like doing let me one of your conspiracy signs so I can take it with me.
The lollipop guild strikes again, folks. That's all the way out. Yes, Pat.
I wanted to mention one thing real quick before we end. Getting back to the Young Bucks for a sec. I think maybe the Young Bucks, to some extent, have kind of been a victim of how good they were when they first really got noticed by the wrestling world and by the hardcores. I think, their time in TNA was good, but nothing compares to like that 2017, 2018 run in New Japan, Ring of Honor, like the stuff that they were doing then, the beginning of being the elite, like just the merch, the cease and desist stuff, everything that they were doing was cool. It was different. It was a nice homage to the past. And they were having fucking bangers with everybody, including the Briscoes, including O'Reilly and Fish, tons and tons and tons of other tag teams. But I think at that point, they were really, really good. And I think that's why when AEW started, it seemed really exciting because they were coming off those 2 successful years. And I think that because they never really lived up to what we saw, and I don't just mean like we as fans, I think just people in general, maybe people from the wrestling business. I mean, Punk is one example, right? Punk mentioned working the Young Bucks when he talked about when he told his story about WWE on Cole Cabana's podcast, right? When they were friends after he left. He had mentioned working the Young Bucks at PWG. So he liked what he saw from them. He liked what they became. And I think a lot of other people were more optimistic and liked what they were doing. But I think because maybe the follow-up wasn't what we saw, it didn't even really come close to what we saw, what we got hooked with, they kind of fell flat. And I think that they're kind of in this position now where, yes, they're talented. Yes, they're very good when they can go with the right people, but they're just there. They're just there. Like they lost their shine. And I just wanted to know if you guys thought that maybe perhaps because we saw this really great start from them on the global stage, do you think that maybe we kind of feel this way because they never lived up to that hype?
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I do to some extent because, like, remember when AEW started, they weren't going to be the tag champs, and they put over like Private Party, and they were doing stuff like that, and then like within a year they're the tag champs and they're doing nothing but super kicks and all this and that. So yeah, I think you're right. I think they started really hot and just kind of maybe bought into their own hype a little bit.
I think also too, there came that awareness in the last year or so between them and Omega where they felt, man, you know what? We could go to WWE, we could make some money, but Tony's going to pay us more, and the schedule's going to be lighter. We're going to have more say. We can retain our EVP titles as, office, and maybe that's all they needed. Again, would we have liked to have seen the Young Bucks in WWE with some potential dream matches, New Day, back when they could have signed, also with the Usos, other tag teams? Sure, I think the dream matches, there's no shortage of dream matches, I think, between 2017, 2018, 2019, where they could have done that. They chose to, again, consolidate their efforts to collaborate with Cody and Kenny Omega, to get a Mark billionaire to, start a wrestling company where they could headline it. And they've done what they've done. But I think now their value's gone down so much where I'm sure whenever there was a window to negotiate with them, I'm sure Paul maybe spoke with them and gave them a fair number, along with Nick Khan. I'm sure Tony looked at them and said, listen, I lost Cody. And while Tony Khan will never admit this publicly, I think he knows he dropped the ball with Cody. We see what Cody has become since leaving AEW. I think Tony Khan probably said, I don't know if I can afford this with Omega and the Bucks doing the same. And he probably overspent to keep them. And okay, you live with that decision. And I think the Bucks and Omega are fine where they are. That's their ceiling. I think they're already at an age where they're not going to go to WWE. They're too beat up. They're older now. I think this is the Bucks' final resting place, as they say. I don't think you'll ever see him in WWE.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I agree. I find it odd though, because for all of this that is said about the Young Bucks, the one thing that's like the one thing that is kind of messed up about it is nobody really talks about their in-ring work anymore. Like that's just very odd to me.
Correct.
Like they used to talk about this stuff all the time. Like Pat even says it here. Like they were having bangers with all of these different tag teams, and they're not doing that shit anymore. Like, what's to stop them from going out there and just showing everybody, like, hey, we can still go. Like Roman has shown us you can do this at a high volume. MJF and that company has shown you he can go out there and he can work a good match and then not work another match for the next couple months. Like, I don't understand what happened to them, but I think it's really telling to me that this guy, like, he just threw like his best friends out there. You know what I mean? Because over the years, the Usos still make people look good. Kevin and Sammy, they make people look good. Finn and Damian, they make people look good. Like, these are tag teams working right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting that, again, one thing is to be fans of a team, but the partisanship that Meltzer shows, I just think is egregious. And Listen, they're his friends. Okay, we'll do that. We'll put over our friends all the time. Some friends do. Not everybody does that with regularity, but whatever. Sometimes people do that, and it seems like
Not you. You're a fucking heel. You're always burying us on here.
Meltzer seems to be more than happy. And again, he knows what he's doing. He's smart. He knows it's going to trigger fans. Remember, guys, the Wrestling Observer Awards are coming out in just a few weeks, so get ready. It's going to give people a lot of ammunition to talk about on podcasts, because I'm sure if this statement was egregious, you can only imagine in a few weeks where the Observer Awards will come out, and somehow in Dave's mind and in the minds of the readers who vote online, if you subscribe, you get a vote and a ballot, that somehow Tony Khan will be Booker of the Year for the 4th consecutive year. And again, I don't know what version of Earth that belongs in, not the Earth that we live on, that we're presently residing in, but maybe
Not
in
this
some
year,
version
for
of
sure.
Earth. Maybe some version of Earth. But guys, again, before we call it a night here, today, the 16th of January, on this day in pro wrestling history, some notable things, by the way. I think Macho will be happy to hear some of this. As they started their ascension into the Dangerous Alliance faction, on this day in 1992, Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton defeated Dustin Rhodes and Ricky Steamboat to win the WCW World Tag Team Championships in Jacksonville, Florida, adding the first piece of gold to the Dangerous Alliance. We know that Ravishing Rick Rude would soon do that thereafter with the coveted United States Heavyweight Championship. On this day in wrestling history in 1999, Taz retained the ECW World Title against Chris Candido and Shane Douglas at the ECW House Party in Philadelphia at the ECW Arena. On this day in 2000, WCW would present Sold Out from Cincinnati, Ohio. The main event saw Chris Benoit defeat Sid Vicious for the WCW World Heavyweight title in the main event. The win came despite the fact that Benoit had signaled his intention to leave the promotion the next day. Magic believed giving him the title would change his mind. It did not. Obviously, we would know what would happen. We would soon see Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, the late great Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko appear on an edition of Monday Night Raw within the next week. In addition to that, unfortunately, Oklahoma, the clown known as Ed Ferrara, pinned Medusa to win the WCW Cruiserweight Championship, one of the more awful bookings in the Russo era. In 2001, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and The Undertaker defeated then WWF champion Kurt Angle, Kane, and Rikishi in a 6-man tag team main event of SmackDown in Chicago. Also on this day in 2005, the Slapnut himself, Double J Jeff Jarrett, retained the coveted NWA World Heavyweight Championship against Monty Brown in the main event of TNA's Final Resolution from Orlando, Florida. Also on this day, in 2005, at a live event in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, La Resistance won the WWE World Tag Team titles, again, the sort of Raw titles at the time, when they defeated William Regal and Jonathan Coachman, who was substituting for an injured Eugene. Also, on this day in 2006, Edge retained the WWE title against Ric Flair in a TLC match on an episode of Raw from Raleigh, North Carolina. Also in 2009, Hardcore Holly was released from his 16-year career with the WWE. In 2012, Jack Swagger defeated Zack Ryder for the WWE United States Championship on Monday Night Raw from Anaheim. And also, folks, on this day, Bobby Roode defeated Jinder Mahal in 2018 to win the WWE United States Championship on a SmackDown Live from Laredo, Texas. And on this day in 2021, Impact Wrestling presented Hard to Kill. In the main event, Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers defeated Rick Swann, Chris Sabin, and Moose. All that stuff, folks, happening on this day, January the 16th, in pro wrestling history. Guys, take us home. What are we looking out for?
Just excited. 1 week away for the Royal Rumble. I'm assuming next week on the show we'll do our predictions of who we think is going to win each match. I'm excited. The road to WrestleMania starts next week, so that'll be fun. I mean, that's pretty much it. By you, Pat?
WrestleMania. I am looking forward to fulfilling the rest of my my obligations here with working the marks and stepping away from this program. I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait. It's gonna be wonderful.
Tyler,
He's sick of us. Looking forward to probably gonna check out Hard to Kill tomorrow since you have talked it up so much.
The Seagal movie or the TNA pay-per-view?
The TNA pay-per-view, not a
You
Seagal.
should watch the Seagal movie though. That was really good.
one of the better ones, actually.
Okay.
Believe it or not. With Kelly
He's in a
LeBron.
coma for 7 years, bro.
Yeah, Kelly
They'll do
LeBron.
back-to-back viewings and see which I like best.
Guys,
remember you.
Guys, for me, folks at home, tune into Real Talk this Monday night as I'll have the president of the Rutgers College Republicans on. It's election year. We'll have a lot to talk about with Jeremy Lee, the Rutgers College Republicans there, my alma mater down in New Brunswick at Rutgers University.
When are you gonna get AOC on the show, bro? I want to watch that show.
I mean, listen, I already deal with you two Puerto Ricans. I don't need the Puerto Rican princess out there to come on the show. I mean, that's you guys are my Puerto Rican quota. Ya eso para mí suficiente. Yo no tengo que pasarme de eso. I'm good. I don't have to.
I don't know what he just said, but
Me dan ganas de tirarte un fucking plátano. Eso es lo que me dan ganas de darte, cabrón.
But folks, again, sharing is caring. Click that share button and let everybody you know on all platforms how much you love working the marks here on Famcast Media. Folks, he is the only Canadian destroyer that sells in North America. He's the talent Tyler Taylor. He is the newest member of the Lollipop Guild out in Western Pennsylvania, Macho Rodriguez. We also have the Snowman, Tom Mysterio, and I am a proud NAACP member, a champion for people of color everywhere. Fernando Uribe. That's right.
Hijo de puta.
Now, folks, if we're talking wrestling, we're working the marks right here with Famcast Media. D, please come back. I'll do my best to make sure that these two bullies don't bully you anymore. And guys, again, enjoy the rest of your week. And certainly we'll see you next week here on Famcast Media for the latest edition of Working the Marks, right here on Facebook Live and StreamYard. And yes, I get to look at Pat's amazing nostril hair, which is about as long as his mustache. I don't know what's really longer, but we'll find out. Folks, tune in next week, and thanks for stopping by.
Tune in so we can finish the story.
Oh.
Famcast Media. Big